Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to join us today at the Abstract Summit and on this panel where we'll be discussing the state of usability in Web3. My name is Amal. I am a partnerships lead at Redstone Oracle. We're a modular oracle focused on pricing yield-bearing assets and collateral for lending markets, specializing in LSTs and LRTs. We're live on over 50 chains and work with some of the biggest names in lending, including Morpho, Venus, EtherFi, and more. And today I'm joined here by my wonderful panelists, where we'll be discussing the various approaches for improving Web3 user experience for mass adoption. I'll let each of you go down the line and introduce yourselves, starting here with Phil to my left.
Awesome. So hi, my name is Phil Hadiatnia. I'm the co-founder of a company called Airfoil. We're a product design, branding, and product strategy firm that works with early stage founders in the Web3 space to help them take their products to market. So we've worked with a Solana Labs team since the early days. We've worked well with Sui and Uniswap and a bunch of other folks across the space, now about over 300 projects. And I've been a product designer now for about 10 years. I used to work both at an early stage fund where I worked with their portcos, as well as at a bunch of early stage fintech companies before catching the crypto bug 5 years ago and jumping straight in. So yeah, that's me. Who to share?
One of them. Andre, I'm VP of Growth at Safe. Before we were known as Gnosis Safe, before we spun out around 2 years ago from Gnosis. And for those that might not be familiar, Gnosis Safe started off as a multi-sig, and is providing smart account infrastructure. And overall, it's being used a lot by protocols, by teams, but also by retail. And overall, we're storing and managing, or users are storing and managing around 65 billion worth of crypto assets on it. And yeah, I'm excited to be here on the panel.
Thanks.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine. I am the Chief Operating Officer at ENS Labs. We are the core team behind your favorite protocol that maintains open source naming standards. So if any of you have a .eth name, that's what we do.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Ankit. I'm a product lead at OKX. Currently, our team is building out XLayer, which is a ZK-L2 that connects OKX with the Ethereum community. And prior to that, I was also working a lot with our OKX wallet for global growth. And yeah, before that, I was one of the founders of Sapien. We were building one of the first Web3 social networks back in like 2017. So yeah, been around for some time. Excited to be here.
Hey everyone, surprise mystery guest. I am Brian. I am a design lead at Uniswap Labs. I lead product design, marketing design, and brand design. I think most of you are familiar with Uniswap. Yeah, one of the largest DEX, continuing to innovate. We're entering a new chapter of innovation, so excited to share all that's ahead on this panel.
Wonderful, thank you, and thank you for being here today. I'll kick it off with the first question, which is, what do you guys think are some of the key usability challenges facing Web3 applications today, and how can we improve them to meaningfully address the user experience? Brian, I'd actually love you to kick it off as the lead designer at Uniswap.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, following Ethan's talk just now, if any of you were there, it's actually very closely aligned with the thesis of this next chapter of Uniswap. We're innovating across the entire tech stack. We're abstracting away chains, whether it means exploring and discovering tokens or swapping. We just rolled out our multi-chain experience so that you're able to kind of like see across all different networks that we support. And soon we'll be rolling out swapping across different networks and bridging across different networks, all within our simple swap widget.
Wonderful. Catherine, I'd love to hear from you as well, how ENS is addressing UX experience for new users entering the space.
I mean, ENS, like internally, we really view ourselves more as like a UX protocol. like, and not to like, you know, take a shot if someone says abstract, but our goal eventually is to abstract away like addresses, right? So that like you're just interacting with names as you do in the real world. And you know, thereby making Web3 a less scary place and make it feel more human.
Wonderful. And Phil, as the head of a design studio, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, especially.
I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is that we force people to learn a lot about the technology before they get any value from it. So one thing that comes up a lot, especially when we're talking about like things like Web3 gaming, is that people say, oh, I want to create my own wallet experience because I want to create the best wallet experience for gaming. I don't want something that's super financialized and build a separate app. People go there. There's really no reason, though, that somebody should have to onboard to a self-custodial wallet in order to use your application or to interact with a brand new bridge or something of that kind, right? I think that we should be using smart wallets a lot more. We should be abstracting away the wallet experience entirely so that people enter an app through something they already use, right? Whether it's authenticating with their face using Face ID or whether it's authenticating with a social profile. And once they get value from one decentralized application, then encourage them to get a self-custodial wallet so they can interact with other applications from the same wallet, right? This idea in crypto that we want to onboard people to crypto before we onboard people to our specific app experience, it should be the other way around. Meet people where they are, onboard them to a specific app, convince them that that all this stuff has value to them outside of speculation, and then inform them how getting their own wallet enables them to use the same account everywhere. It actually enables convenience as opposed to being a kind of a task they need to complete to get with it.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point about meeting the user where they are, onboarding to the app first as opposed to crypto first. I'm curious, that leads interestingly into the next question as to how can Web3 projects balance concerns around security and privacy simultaneously with the need for a seamless, intuitive user experience, essentially being this seamless, usable dApp without having to compromise security concerns to abstract away the crypto experience. And I would love to hear from Andre at Safe.
I think for that, like the developer of the app has to ask themselves if they need all of that security in the first place. So I think we come from a standpoint where we're treating every single user, every single application as like a financial layer, as if a user would have millions or hundreds, thousands of funds on it. Or we treat them all kind of like as if it's like your wallet that is just there to play with and it's like embedded and maybe you'll forget about it. So I think there's like a discussion to be had. We're saying we should only have as much security as we need for a specific app. For instance, a good example is passkeys. So that was also brought up. Passkeys makes it very easy for you to spin up a wallet with that and to authenticate beyond it. But if you want to really use, if you then you store significant funds on it, maybe you shouldn't use a passkey anymore. Passkeys kind of are like specific to specific domains, could also be exploited. So maybe you don't want to fund like you have your main treasury on it, or if you're an institutional client, you want to have it on it, or if you actually through the app maybe say, okay, so now it's getting like real and it's getting kind of like a significant amount of time spent, maybe significant amount of assets you have, you should be able to level up. So you start with a passkey, maybe then you have like 2 signers or so. So the more and more you do, the more and more you interact with Web3 or with a specific app, you need more and more security. But we're treating it all kind of like the same at the moment.
Ankit, how are you guys thinking about the security usability trade-off at XLayer?
Yeah, I mean, I think more broadly thinking about security and decentralization, I think for those that caught like Vitalik's talk yesterday, he had a really nice diagram where he sort of had like decentralization on this y-axis and practicality on the x-axis. And if you're trying to maximize for decentralization, you're just getting people to create EOA wallets and, you know, write down their seed phrase and hide it, you know, underground and never sort of touch it again, right? Whereas on the practicality side, he called out like Sam Bankman-Fried and sort of like trusting institutions to hold our crypto, which I think a lot of people do, especially when they're getting into crypto. So I think what we're all getting at is that like we don't really have to make that compromise anymore, right? We can actually sort of build in this new diagonal direction where we get the best of both worlds. And I think that's the stuff that excites me, excites what we're building at Xlayer, because we want to sort of bring in the existing sort of trust institutions that we've all grown up with and have gotten used to, the Googles, you know, and backing up with email, SMS, all that stuff, right? And we want to bring that to the Web3 experience, especially when it comes to onboarding. So that's what we're looking more into. OKX was very early experimenting with smart accounts. We had it in our wallet, and we're playing around with that. Still, the adoption quite isn't there, and there are some standards that we can talk about that will get us there. But yeah, I think it's not a trade-off necessarily that we have to make anymore. So.
Fantastic, thank you. I think that leads us nicely into our next question as to, given that we don't have to make these trade-offs, what role now does user education and onboarding play in growing mainstream Web3 adoption? Like, how can we simplify these aspects of security, decentralization for non-technical users? And I'd like to open this for the entire floor.
I would jump in on this to actually just say that I don't really think we do much onboarding at all in a lot of crypto applications, right? If you think about like, what does the average deck experience look like? You have a basic landing page, you have enter app, you go into the app experience, and you're from there just asked to connect your wallet and keep going, right? And I think part of this comes back to a misconception about design that I think a lot of people have, which comes all the way from the days of Palm, if you remember like the PDA back 20, 25 years ago. So Palm had a rule of design, which was that they wanted to do everything in as few taps as possible. And I think a lot of people have internalized that to be like, good design is whatever will get you the fastest to the outcome that you want to have. But I don't really think of it that way, right? It's not how can we maximize the number of users that make it from our onboarding page to the application. It's how many people can we get to complete their first meaningful action. And if you don't fully understand the product you're using, why it matters to you, how it helps you, you're going to show up at the application, but you're then going to close it and go somewhere else. So I love when DeFi protocols have onboarding steps where they step you through how the protocol works. They explain it to you. They convince you that you ought to use it. They enable you to select things like what language you're using or what your intention is for. They adapt their interface based on the level of technical sophistication you have. But oftentimes, like, we don't even build those at all because we sort of say, oh, we don't need usernames and passwords anymore, so we don't need an onboarding. But I think we need to make sure at first, right, that we even have onboarding flows in the applications that we build.
Yeah, I want to just add to that point. I think like basically we're all at this point probably saying the same thing, which is like, I think from a infra level perspective, like there's so much progress there has been made. Like, when you think about, okay, what are some of the challenges, right? Like, okay, cross-chain challenges, but like bridges have come so far. Or like, oh, people are still scared to use crypto because I'm scared to lose my like account, then I don't know how to recover it. Well, there are projects like Farcasters introducing like social recovery. Or oh, I can use like crypto on my phone, and that really sucks. Or like, oh, I'm scared to like walk my family and friends to creating a wallet. Well, like embedded wallets have also come such a long way. And so like at this point, I think like so much of what we do, like all of us here, I think is like thinking through like, where do you meet the users? How do you meet the users? And also like, do you necessarily even need to like, okay, like I flew here, right, on an 18-hour flight. Like I have no idea how the plane works, but I'm totally happy to like get on that and use it. I'm very happy, right? Like I don't need to understand. Maybe some of you do, and but I don't need to as a user, right? Like I need to be able to trust that like this is gonna work. And so like I think we probably all spend a lot of time like not just thinking through like, okay, like from a product level, like where can we meet our users where we are, but how can we like build that trust, and how can we also, by the way, leverage all the amazing progress made on the infra level, or to some of us who are building both protocol and app, like can you make changes that are enshrined on the protocol level that then reflects well like on the interface level?
Yeah, and just to quickly build on that too, I mean, I think design is an important pillar, but it certainly isn't the full picture, right? And when I think about onboarding, it's like, do you also have like the community piece there? Do you actually have a space where people can learn about your product or protocol in a way that's like mutually reinforcing, right? So especially when you're thinking about building things like new chains, you have to think about like the culture, right? You have to think about, are people helping each other out in the onboarding process? And I think that's one of those things that really does separate Web3 from Web2, that, you know, many of the highest quality projects do have a really great community behind it that can be the biggest evangelists, that can help each other onboard. And that piece is another area that I'm super excited about.
You all made a lot of really great points. Phil mentioned, you know, a lot of Web3 apps, they don't even have onboarding, and I strongly agree with that. You know, the bar for usability, user friendliness, design, thoughtfulness is as low as hell in this space. And you know, and Uniswap is known for its accessible design, but even to me, I feel like there's so much room to improve. And with onboarding, we, you know, recently we updated our mobile wallet onboarding experience, because we learned that, you know, now if you think about the mobile experience and users are on the go, you know, they're creating a wallet, and to have them to have to like write down a seed phrase and to like quiz them on it for safety reasons to make sure that they have it. You know, people were you know, not completing that onboarding experience, and so we recently redesigned it to be more efficient, more effective, to kind of like just have them go through the necessary steps and the necessary safety precautions. And at Uniswap, we take safety extremely seriously. It's our #1 priority. You know, if you think about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like safety, you know, is #1. Without safety, you don't get much else. Uniswap is one of the oldest protocols, and you know, in this room, in this space, and knock on wood, never been hacked. And right now, we even have the largest bug bounty. If anyone wants to find a bug in our V4 protocol, so any of you could be a millionaire today if you find a bug in our code, and you know, something that we take extremely seriously. I think just under $2.5 million is the bounty that we're putting out if you find a bug. So safety is very important.
Just to build on top of that, I think one part is also that we lost some people on the way, and people don't know actually all the UX improvements that happened over time. So, for instance, over the last days, I mean, all of us are taking Grab, and people are asking, so why are you in town? And actually, like, people who have been also like, who know what crypto is, still think that you have to pay a lot of gas fees. They still think that you have to write down a seed phrase. So I think a real challenge is also people who have been exposed to crypto like 2 years ago or so, and the years before, to kind of like unlearn and like there's misconceptions around crypto also these days. So people are still kind of like stuck in that. I think for us, it's building kind of like use cases that show that better, but also kind of educating all of the improvements that have happened over time. I think otherwise it's just going to be the label. It's inefficient. It's a money grab. It's really hard to use, but we have all the tooling kind of in place for that.
As we evolve, what emerging innovations do you guys anticipate will enhance the usability and drive broader adoption of Web3? And how can projects begin to prepare for that? Again, one more time for the whole floor. All right, Catherine.
Okay, I can go. I'll start first. You guys will just have to make up new ones to follow. One of my like favorites. So like this, I'm not gonna talk about like ENS. I just want to talk about like one of my favorite companies in the space, and that's like, you know, embedded wallet stuff. Like for like Privy is one of my favorite examples that I like to use. Just like I talked about embedded wallets earlier, but like Privy literally powers some of our like favorite apps that I'm sure a lot of you here have used. Friendtech, Zora, Blackbird, Azuki, DYDX, like, and that like Privy literally was not in existence even 2 years ago. Like when you talk about how do you make crypto more global, how do you make it like so that people can use it on mobile and also on like desktop, how do you improve like usability, and also how much like has been made in the account abstraction like space, like that I am really excited about. I think like so anyways, that's one of them. I'm going to leave like others for people to say.
Yeah, I think we're all here for this abstract conference, and I think what Particle Network is doing is really, really great. I think this next evolution, this next stage in this industry is about kind of abstracting away a lot of the complexity, providing users with a simple interface that, kind of, makes the complicated blockchain technology underneath, more user friendly. And so, abstracting away as much as possible, as much of the complexity, and providing the safety precautions needed. Not need, kind of like solving the fragmented networks, fragmented liquidity. I think all of those will help. And I think a lot of the what's in people's head is like, crypto needs to just work, and I actually believe that that's not enough, and just work is maybe the next stage. But if you think about any successful Web2 company, like it's not that it just works. It's like it's delightful. It's people have emotional connections. They have irrational loyalty to these companies, and so I think first we need to make it. We do need to make it just simple to use.
I think what excites us as Safe and thinking a lot about account abstraction is a very specific standard that's going to be included in the next hard fork, which is EIP 7702, which allows any EOA, so any externally owned account that's based on seed phrases, to upgrade that to a smart account. And if you do believe that smart accounts are better for usability, you can do batch transactions, you can rotate your signers, you can onboard passkeys, like also what we discussed, like level up and have more and more security considerations. That we think is a big unlock, because so far it is kind of like really hard to change user behavior. It's hard to have people migrate from one solution to the other. But if it's easy and you kind of can stay with your account, just like upgrade it, that's a big unlock, and we're very excited about that.
Yeah, actually, Andre, you stole my answer, so I'm mad at you now. No, but 7702, I think that's one of the unlocks that letting EOAs act as smart accounts. For the initial couple transactions, I think that's like a really nice way to onboard people. So I really like that. But even besides that, I think like the level. I mean, we are at Abstract Summit, so like the stuff that we're seeing like Polygon do with the ag layer and trying to abstract away different CDK chains, very strong, right? What Optimism is doing with Superchain, heading in the right direction. What Everclear is doing as well, like building a clearing layer, right? All these things work towards ultimately abstracting away the chain, so users don't really care what network they're on, right? So that is something that I think projects need to start preparing for. What does that future look like? It might not be that far away at all. It could be within next couple of months. And the question is, as your project, how are you sort of again building those delightful user experiences, right? Which I would love to say like that was even the case like a couple years ago, but it just wasn't, right? And now we have a chance to do so, and now we have the chance to build some of those interesting consumer apps that we all want so badly. So yeah, that's
Absolutely. Innovation is accelerating fast. And like you said, that future may be around the corner faster than we think, where chain culture is completely abstracted as well. As we move towards that future, what metrics or KPIs do each of you use to assess the usability of your products as you develop them? And how does that affect your roadmap? Phil, I'd love to hear from you, given how many the unique products Airfoil works with.
Absolutely. So we do take a different approach with the different projects we work with, for sure, because it also depends on what communities are okay with, right? For a lot of us, we come from this kind of like anarcho-capitalist, more like CryptoPunk, like background. And so the idea of inserting tracking tools or tools for analytics is something that I think a lot of communities are not a fan of. And I think it's important to inform users always when you're using tools to capture data about what they're doing. That being said, we do try to kind of just promote that as much as we can among the projects we work on. So if we feel, one thing that we've tried in a few projects, because there's different levels of this, right? It could be inserting a Google Analytics tracker and being able to then do some funnel analysis on like how users are converting across your application. But there's a tool called Full Story that we've used that actually does session capture. And so there's a few protocols of what we've recommended is that they ask a subset of their users, they create a pop-up and says, we'd like to learn more about your user experience. Would you be okay with session capture? We're going to anonymize your data. If they opt in and say yes, we then actually have full recordings of where they're clicking, where they're looking, where they're getting stuck, where they're rage clicking, etc. And that sort of information is really important. If I'm designing a much more traditional product focused on one market, then I personally, as a designer, love in-person stuff. I love doing in-person user testing. That is super hard to do when you're launching in 40 countries at once. But I think session capture tools are not utilized enough. And a lot of times when we start working with the protocol, we'll say, what data do you even have to give us? And they'll be like, we don't know. We have the total number of people who hit our website. It's like, well, that doesn't tell me where they're having a bad experience. And the other thing we do is we always check in communities, right, to see what people are complaining about. It's not the greatest way to do user research, but it certainly gets us, 10% of the way there, and maybe there's some low-hanging fruit we can take care of.
All right. I would actually like to move to the last question of the panel for the last 4 minutes that we have here. And this one is focused on success stories. And I'd like each of you to go down the line and share a case where a focus on usability significantly boosted the user adoption or engagement in your project. And I'll kick it off with Brian, and then we'll move down back to me.
That's a big question. Let me repeat that to make sure I got it. A case where usability improved and increased user adoption, was that right?
Yeah, where putting usability in the forefront of product development actually paid off in user adoption. You saw like concrete boost in usability, positive user feedback. Any success story?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, I guess this might not be the best story, but the one that comes to mind is, we recently launched the Uniswap wallet extension. So we made it more seamless for users to use the Uniswap web app, with the Uniswap mobile Uniswap extension wallet, and that kind of seamlessness creates almost this like 1 + 1 = 3 experience where you can kind of create more delight, like I was saying. And Uniswap is the first wallet to pioneer this UX pattern of Uniswap extension wallet being in a side panel rather than an ephemeral pop-up. And it's because we believe that when you're dealing with finances, when you're dealing with your funds, the experience shouldn't be this kind of ephemeral pop-up that comes in and out. It should evoke a sense of dependability, confidence, trust. And so we jumped head first into the side panel, and we saw really high levels of adoption, and we saw many of our competitors in the space also adopt that pattern and offer it to their users. So we think we made the right decision there, and we're excited to keep moving that way.
Nice. So I'll give one example from like 4 years back with my first project, Sapien, and then one with OKX. So 4 years back with Sapien, when we were building Web3 social, like we actually had this like tipping feature. You could like tip comments and posts, and then there would be a rewards pool that would proportionally reward users for the value that they created. And there was a lot of friction initially to get that first transaction going. So what we ended up doing was like abstract that out, right? We actually created this like concept of charges that just lived one level higher than just like a token transfer. So when we introduced that, like we actually just like subsidized charges for users so that when they signed up, they could just like send charges to posts or comments that they thought were valuable. Now, this was like groundbreaking back then because we were using like gasless relayers in the back and, made it like super seamless. And the outcome of that was like, we reduced that sort of like, we made the barrier to entry so simple. And we, became one of the top social dApps back in 2020 there, which is awesome.
That could start from like a few ways. One is that like you lower any possible barriers to entry. And like for a long time, that was gas fees. Obviously, like gas fees on mainnet has come down a lot, but we've also like, for example, if you've voted in good DAO governance, like we've done like refunds there. And so like that is like just one way. The other one is just like, how do you reach as many people as possible? And like one of the big things that we decided to do was actually to start supporting off-chain names. And what that led to was like, we saw cb.id, and like we actually have, I think like 11 million names from cb.id. We worked with Uniswap. And that's also like, I think ended up in maybe almost 1 million, I want to say, like Uniswap ID names. And so, given that our North Star, I think, is like fairly straightforward. And so like we are able to actually have the freedom to actually explore multiple ways to really, again, our broad goal is to abstract away addresses. And so like, how can we do that to, from the lower barriers entry point and also from like broader distribution entry point?
Two examples from like more recent past. One like 2 months ago, what we did is with Safe, you could always interact with DeFi, the wallet connector, or through the Safe apps. What we did is to integrate swapping natively, so to bring it like way closer to the user, and we saw great adoption there. And even more so, we saw accounts that before didn't interact with DeFi actually interact with DeFi and with DEXs for the first time. So where before maybe the user behavior was off-ramping to a centralized exchange and then kind of like bringing back or swapping, you have people use DeFi if it's like convenient for them. And I think that convenience is important. And the second one is what we're also having is a transaction simulation. So before you sign actually your transaction, you see like what it would be. So you see your balance change, you check the transaction beforehand. Are you interacting with the right protocol? Do you give allowances that you shouldn't be giving? Advice on that. And I think also that because nothing is revertible in crypto, you need more of these checks beforehand. And I think, yeah, there's so much more to be done. Like there's from small tweaks to like really huge innovations. But yeah, that's what we do.
So last thing I'll say quickly is that so we worked on something called the Solana name service, or SNS, which is kind of the equivalent of ENS on the Solana blockchain. And so when we got started with the project, right, they'd already launched, but it was very difficult to understand. And I think this is a really important point. It was very difficult to understand why you should actually get one at all, right? Why is it important? Beyond just like making it easier for somebody to send you money because they can enter in your username, like what's the actual benefit of this, right? And you can host projects, right? You can host distributed web applications. Also, of course, like it's easier to send people stuff. So we reimagined the whole experience, leading with a landing page that laid out actual use cases of an on-chain name. And we reworked the entire flow. It started with, it would show you popular and trending names. It would show you names people had bought recently. And we're like, that's not actually relevant, right? Like I want a name for me. It doesn't matter what name is popular right now. It's like, what can I do with it? So we reworked the landing page to be focused on practical use cases. And then the search experience, we made it so you didn't have to sign in with a wallet at all. So you would wait all the way until the checkout screen before we would then prompt you to get a wallet. And then we positioned it with a bunch of information saying things like, get one name, take it wherever you go. We reminding people of kind of the USP of even getting a name as whole. Conversion just about doubled from before to after. And I think this goes back to a very important point that I'd like to make, which is the importance of starting with why your product or service matters rather than starting with what you do. If you go to the MetaMask website, the first thing you see is a wallet for the world of Ethereum, right? It's like, that's great. Now I know what that is. If that's specifically what I'm looking for, that's awesome. But we should be instead positioning it to users as what they can get from it, what they can explore, how it can benefit their lives, right? Like store your own assets, maintain control over your own assets. So if we do that more across our applications, I think we'll see those types of improvements in usability and improvements in conversion.
And with that level of optimism on the future of usability, I want to thank all the panelists for their time and sharing their knowledge. And we will wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for coming.